work. And again, you know, there are places where it's not an uncommon sight to see an armed citizen, and law enforcement has, through training and through normalization, gotten able to handle it just fine. But I know here in Ohio, open carry is the law. We're allowed to do it, but there are still jurisdictions that don't want to recognize it, that send the cops to roll, that actually have harassed citizens for doing it, and they really have no intention of changing because they want to discourage the practice. And I've, to address that, written letters, open letters to both the current and the former Attorney General and said, you know, look, you guys have this guide that you give to law enforcement on concealed carry, and buried in the back in one little paragraph is just a little blurb about the fact that, oh, by the way, open carry is also legal. And that's not really sufficient. It gives law enforcement an out not to recognize it and or not to be trained in that. And what I've suggested instead is, look, you have the authority and you have the list. You can send a mandate and a directive down to every law enforcement agency in the state explaining what the law is and mandating that every sworn officer out there in the field be given a copy of what the law is, maybe sign a little sheet that says I've received this training and put it in their jacket, and now you've taken away the excuse that I did not know about this, and you have made things a lot safer for the citizen who chooses to exercise their right to bear arms.
No, that's a good point, actually. That the fact of the matter is, if there was something going on that was maybe a robbery taking place, I can say that in many places, let's just take Texas for an example, because I can probably speak about that easier. If you happen to be a bad guy in Texas and decide that you're going to rob what they refer to as an ice house, which is just a 7-Eleven to the rest of us, but and you walk in there, you better be aware that if there's anybody in that store, and certainly they may well be armed. So I know that even the bad guys got to think about the fact that they may be confronting not only someone behind the cash register who may have a weapon, but there may be people in that store with a weapon. And so the positive side is, and I think we'll find statistics to prove this. You may have them, David. I don't know. We're still researching it. But I think there is statistics that will prove that wearing or being armed, whether it's exposed or not, in Texas, you don't have to have it exposed. You can certainly get a concealed weapons permit after going through a school. But the whole issue in there sort of comes to another point in time when it's actually in place. I think the problem here in California is going to be, since it is such a touchy state to begin with, that there's going to be a lot of people creating a lot of problems with law enforcement. A lot of cell phone calls are going to be made until this little hill is climbed and people begin to understand that not everyone with a gun is a bad guy, not everyone with a gun is a law enforcement officer either. But I think there's probably going to be some problems in here. I love the fact that it's up. I love the fact that they're meeting up there. I love the fact that they're meeting right in Nancy Pelosi's backyard. But I do think there's going to be a bit of a hill to climb.
There is a tremendous hill to climb in California, and there's a lot of hoplophobia, what Colonel Cooper called, which is fear of weapons, that comes into play, and there's a lot of hostility. There's a lot of anti-gun bigotry happening in California. The statement by Mr. Dix that he thinks that the reason people do this is because they want to intimidate people. That's just an insult, okay? And I don't even think that that should be addressed. But the thing that really concerned me was the assistant DA, this Morley Pitt from San Mateo County, and he's going on record telling the media that he thinks the feeling of safety or public safety somehow should trump the Second Amendment. And first of all, he hasn't, proven anything in terms of resurrecting feelings, and in fact, we are safer when citizens go armed. But the thing about it that most concerned me is, if you look at Article 6 of the Constitution, it says in part that all executives and judicial officers, both the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. And that means that this guy took an oath to support the Constitution, and he's not taking a public stance that we need to just throw out the Second Amendment and trump that with some illusion of public safety. That to me is a violation of his oath. That to me is an impeachable offense. So I'm sorry if I come off hard line on that.
No.
I just really resent these anti-gunners in positions of power trying to dictate what our rights are.
You're absolutely right, David. I agree with you 100%. And I can't think of a better state to bring this to than California, because there's going to be a huge amount of controversy over this. It'll bring the whole thing into the light, drag it out of the dark corners, and we're going to have an opportunity to act. You know, no doubt in California that there'll be some sort of a law that's going to be worked on. You know, I don't know where it'll go out here, but California is the perfect state for certainly opencarry.org to come on board and continue with this. And I'm not sure that any citizens in California can actually somehow influence what takes place, except that they can come forward and they can state how ridiculous it is to try to go against the Second Amendment of the United States.
Well, there really are two different Californias, just like last week we talked about two different Texases. There's Austin and then there's the rest of Texas, okay? And California has, you know, if you take a look at the red-blue mix-up, you know, we've all seen the map of the United States showing the red states versus the blue states, and California has a similar mix-up with counties. And so that you'll find that there are more rural-type counties where the people are going to be more like flyover country America, as opposed to the areas like San Francisco and the Bay Area. So they picked, first of all, the perfect location to do this. They have, it looks like, some excellent representatives. Every one of these people looks, you know, well-dressed. They look educated. They look articulate. They don't look threatening in any way, shape, or form. And we need to see that as the face of armed citizens more and more, that this is somebody that could be your brother, this is somebody that could be your wife, this is somebody that could be your coworker at the office. And, you know, we talk normally, we're not all, you know, inbred banjo pickers from Deliverance, okay, which again gets into some more of the anti-gun bigotry, where they take rural Americans who are salt of the earth people who have just a tremendous amount of knowledge. I mean, if you have any idea what it takes, and I'm sure you do coming from Texas, what it takes to get by in a rural environment, whether it be a farm or a ranch or whatever, the mechanical skills that you need, the engineering skills, just everything that goes with it, just tremendously accomplished and educated people, and they're all portrayed as being, you know, slack-jawed knuckle-draggers.
Right. You know, and the one thing you left out in there, David, which I think we should just go back to for a second, is the fact that that armed person in the store may well save your life. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to turn that over and actually look at both sides of this issue. And where people are uncomfortable with guns, they need to remember that if something goes bad, and it goes bad every second around here, certainly in the country, that there may be someone in there armed who's going to protect you, a member of your family, or some of your property because he was armed. And I think that's the point that we need to get across here.
And you can go back and you'd mentioned statistics, and I'm not really big on statistics, just simply because I don't consider myself qualified really to talk to statistics in detail. But I have read some, and I've read the works of John Lott, More Guns, Less Crime, and I also know about the Wright-Rossi studies that happened back during the Carter administration, and basically they wanted to prove that, you know, guns were a big problem. And they took a look at this, and they came up with some conclusions that weren't very convenient for the administration, including the fact that felons are saying that, you know what, yeah, an armed citizen is a deterrent to us. We admit that. And so, you know, we need to take a look at that, and we need to do that as part of our outreach and education, along with the normalizing of the practice of armed citizens, which the open carry movement is doing.
Absolutely, David. And I think we're going to continue this with your help and with the help of opencarry.org.